Welcome to the Crew Roundtable Podcast, brought to you by CrewRoundtable.com, a roundtable discussion of all the hot news affecting the Greater Toronto Area, featuring Big V, Marko, Gino, and JR. And now your host of the Crew Roundtable, the champ who runs the camp, Sal Champ.
Welcome everyone to episode 3 of the Roundtable Podcast. Today we'll be discussing probably our first discussion of many on the Donald Trump. Unfortunately today we are without Big V, and our roundtable consists of, going to my left, starting on my left, JR.
Always a pleasure to be here, champ.
Thank you for coming. Tito.
Oi.
Thank you. Breeze.
Oh, bring it on, baby. Bring it on.
All right, everyone is revving, redlining. They're ready to go. Who would like to start?
I'm going to be starting on this one, champ, because I believe we've already got the battle lines drawn for this particular discussion. I am of the opinion, I have a feeling that Donald Trump has zero chance to win a general election for the presidency of the United States of America. Not only that, each day that passes, he will lose support, and there will be a landslide victory for Clinton. Maybe unfortunate, but this guy has absolutely zero chance to win. How he got this far is somewhat of a mystery, but I don't think he has any chance to win. And people who are predicting doom and gloom, I think they just got their heads up their butts. This guy is not going to win. There's no chance.
I don't know. I'm not quite sure how polls work. I know how polls work, but I'm not sure how well they reflect the final results. I'm sure one of our listeners can call in, write in.
They can tweet us. We are on Twitter, and if you'd like to ask us a question, use the hashtag #AskTheCrew, and we are found. Our account is at Crew Roundtable.
Yes.
Is it the Crew Roundtable?
No,
or just Crew?
Crew Roundtable.
That's correct. Thank you. So we're found at Crew Roundtable, and if you got a question, just hashtag it #AskTheCrew.
So I'm not 100% sure how well polls end up reflecting the final result, but they are definitely trending. And just to be clear, I don't want Donald Trump to win. I fear that he might, or it'll be very close. But a la 2001. But I really don't think he is fit for office. But the key is not that he's a competent leader, and I'm pretty sure that the Republican Party realized that he is completely incompetent as a leader. But the power is that they have majorities in the House and the Senate, and they'll have a president that will not veto anything. They will have 2 years before the next election to actually do anything they want. I bet you dollars to donuts, within hours of his inauguration, they will strip Planned Parenthood of all their funding, because the only thing that's been holding it back is Obama consistently vetoing that vote.
Wait, but there will be another makeup, because they're not just voting for the presidency, right? There's a certain percentage of representatives, a certain percentage of senators. Like, they're not just voting for the president, right?
True.
So the balance of power could shift one way or the other.
Obama's won 2 elections, and it hasn't shifted the power. It hasn't shifted the power in 8 years.
We can't say.
Unfortunately, the president, his election victory, his or her election victory, rides partially on their party alignment and partially on themselves. I mean, you're voting for the person in that case. They don't. Their actual power in creating laws is limited. So a lot of theirs is personality, charisma. A personal flub really costs them an election. When you think that almost every election should be 50-50, because the party line is practically 50-50. But whereas your representative, most likely, the senators and the congressmen, They run almost strictly on party platform.
Okay,
And
so
that election is strictly a Republican election, whereas the president is more of a little more personality driven.
okay, so a couple of things. They don't have party discipline in the states, right? Those people can vote whatever way they want.
True, but they are it's still very polarized. They can. You're right. They are free voting.
Yes,
But I haven't. The last 8 years, they've behaved as one complete entity.
so that may be a trend that they're going to. Maybe they're going towards more party discipline, like we have here in Canada, right? But let's put a little bit of context on this discussion now, which is, can Trump win?
Okay.
Okay, so I will throw out something that may seem to help your cause. We're going to use the power of Google. Google's not a sponsor. Or is it Alphabet? Alphabet's who's not a sponsor?
Alphabet's the old corporation.
Alphabet's the whole
part-
thing?
Google's a sub company.
So we don't want Google sponsorship? Is that what you're saying? We
Google
want
can throw
Alphabet?
us all the cash they want.
So what we're saying is we are available to be bought. But let's use a right wing. I think we would all agree that Fox News is a bit of a right wing Trump supporting entity.
Yes,
Yep.
there's no debate on that.
So 6 hours ago, they came out with a poll, and the headline reads, I just had it here. Fox News poll, Clinton ahead of Trump after debate, fear motivating both sides. So according to Fox News, they have, in the four horses that are running, Clinton has 43%, Trump has 40%. Seems to be a statistical dead heat. Okay. However, that lead for Clinton has gone up after the last 2 weeks. So it used to be 41%.
Okay.
So it used to be a 1%. Now it's a 3%. Still, as I said, statistical dead heat, but the gap is widening.
What was the trend before leading up to the debate? I'm pretty sure she was trending downwards. Always ahead,
But
it
downwards.
was a negative trend.
But
yes.
downwards. Now she's, according to at least to Fox News, I'm not going to go through 1,000,001 polls here, but at least according to Fox News, she is winning. And it says that in a two candidate, so you get rid of the other two fringe people who are running, okay? You get rid of the other two fringe parties. And in a head-to-head poll, Clinton is ahead by 5 points on Donald Trump. So it gets even larger,
Okay.
okay? I tweeted out a little while ago that all Clinton has to do to win this election is just shut up. Just take a cue, be quiet, let Donald Trump speak. You will win in a landslide. Now, she had her own little affectations and her own little smarty pants answers and her own funny little jigs and head bobbles in the last election where she looked like a school marm, okay? That may have cost her some support, but all she has to do is be quiet. This man will self-destruct. He came into his position by speaking to a minority of the minority and rallying their support. The only people who voted for him so far are card-carrying members of the far-right Republican Party. Those are the only people who have voted for him so far. And they voted for him more as a TV show. As soon as he starts to talk about any policy whatsoever, as soon as he starts to talk about what he can and cannot do as president, everything falls apart.
The problem is his story flip-flops all the time.
He lies.
He's lying straight up, but he's not being held accountable. A lot of anyone who's already decided to vote Trump, I doubt that percentage changes
Why?
because they see him as a symbol of success. That's why he's not releasing his tax forms. They don't realize how much he actually doesn't give a crap about the little guy. He says he is. He's blaming a lot of their woes on the Mexicans and the immigrants and such, but he's not going to change that. As much as he thinks he's going to, that's not going to change. The wall, his wall estimates are out of control, are woefully underestimated. 10, 20 billion is not going to build the wall. They've already built a fence in sections of Texas between the U.S. and the border and Mexico. That section cost $5 or $6 billion, it's completely it's a basic white elephant. It doesn't do anything because most smugglers drill tunnels underground under the fence, and all the land they had to expropriate from honest, hardworking Americans. They think that it's just going to be along a border. There's the fence area, plus they expropriate a couple of miles leading up to it. Like the cost is woefully. They're gonna have to take back like the whole border, and kick people out of their own homes.
So what you're saying is, if people take time to think and vote responsibly,
Yes,
his rhetoric just falls apart.
that's the problem. A lot of his supporters are either simply red bleeding Republicans, or the unwashed masses that see him as a good businessman. A lot of people think he's a successful businessman. In the fact, he's actually gone bankrupt several times. He didn't even build himself up from nothing. He started with an inheritance from his father of a couple $1 million.
Okay, nobody starts from nothing. Everyone has something given to them by their parents. I mean, you can't fault the guy.
Some of the
you
biggest
can't fault the
billionaires
guy
started from nothing.
You can't fault the guy for getting support from his father.
He's got, but and a
You
lot
can't
of
fault him for
and a
that.
lot of his profits came from screwing over the little guy. A lot of the building projects, they don't pay the small suppliers back. They're constantly being sued by contractors. You know, people who supply like the carpeting. It's well known that there's a piano manufacturer that sold $100,000 worth of pianos to one of his hotels or one of the casinos, and they claimed, we can't pay you back. You take 25 cents on the dollar, or you can sue us in court. And this poor bastard had to eat $75,000 worth of pianos, which he was not paid for. So that doesn't sound like someone that should be leading the free world. Mm-hmm. That's not someone who should be leading Dairy Queen.
Isn't that more of a function of business, though? You get a large corporation, you're going to have a legal department, you're going to be constantly in litigation. Is that really something that we need to look at and say, okay, that's exclusive to Trump?
No, we already did our Rogers conversation last episode. We don't need to revisit that.
There you go. So, heading back to the article here from Fox News, just to read you a little bit, because you said that it's a lot of dumb people that are voting for Trump.
Deplorables.
The vast majority.
The vast majority. So Trump is preferred among men, whites,
Yeah.
and independents. He's narrowly ahead among whites with a college degree. There's only a 4-point difference between them. Whites without a degree, he's by far the number one choice. By far the number one choice. Clinton, on the other hand, leads amongst women, 20 points, non-whites, 66%, or 66-point difference, and voters under the age of 45. And she has gained on those numbers in every single segment since the debate. And like you said, from 2 weeks ago, she was trending downwards, and now she's come back up. The people within the party, so the card-carrying members of the party, it's about equal. 80% of those people will back the candidate, right?
Yeah.
And it's always the undecideds who decide every election, because they're the ones who decide at the end of the day who they're going to put their money towards, right?
Yes.
And I can't see anybody, as the time goes on, when they do. So at this point in time, one debate is in the book. One debate is in the books. They have 2 more to come out. I think every successive debate that comes out, if she just shuts up and doesn't say anything and lets him speak, just give him the whole floor. You don't even have to be there at the debate. If I was her, I wouldn't even show up. She has nothing to gain.
Actually,
Let him speak. Just let him speak.
I
Let him go off the cuff.
I agree, but but only slightly. What she can do is egg him on in the right direction. Like, you already saw it when she mentions the supermodel. The next day, he doubled down on her being Hispanic and being over and her weight. He called into Good Morning America or some Fox News show, and doubled down on his comment. First, he said he didn't make the comments, And then the next day he calls in to double down on the said comics that he did make. All you have to do is like start dropping him. You got to just like guide him into a challenge like a bull. And just like a bull, you can get a bull run into a telephone pole. If it doesn't see that it's there and just whip the old cape out at the right time, you can do the same thing with him. Have him make some sort of negative comment towards black people or poor people, and just systematically get him to start alienating anyone who could possibly be supporting him. But just let him go back and run his rhetoric. It seems that this guy can't. This guy almost can do no wrong. He made a comment a couple months ago that he could probably murder a guy and nobody would care, and I'm starting to believe that.
Once again, feeds into my point. He cannot win. He cannot win. There's no way you are going to see President Trump. No way, because if people take the time, to vote responsibly, I can't see how anyone in good conscience could vote for this person. He obviously has no idea how government works. None. Not even his own government. I'm talking government in general. He seems to have no idea how government works, what's possible that he can do once he gets in. There's no policy there really to speak of. There's absolutely zero platform there. It's a bunch of sound bites that he's getting across bit by bit by simply, like you said, doubling down on things and repeating them. Right? People doing fact checks on the debates. Clinton does have a couple of things that she said, but I guess they're saying things so quickly off the cuff they might misspeak. But the amount of things that she said to the amount of things that he said, which were just bold, outright lies, are ridiculous. Right? It's like 6 or 7 to 1 for Trump. So this guy here, as time goes on, his support is going to erode. The only people he's going to have left are the party hardcores that put him into that spot in the first place. And if I was anyone in the Republican Party in the United States, who can you possibly put up? Who can you possibly put up to win?
If I were any intelligent Republicans, I would honestly come out and say we're just going to have to eat this election.
As a party, what other choice do you have?
It's the same thing as they did when Obama's original election. Coming right into it, they knew they weren't going to beat him, and they wound up running. Who ran against Obama originally?
McCain and
what's her face from Alaska.
You don't. Sarah Palin.
Sarah Palin is not chosen as a running mate on a winning team. I'm sorry. They could have picked other more intelligent Republican women. There are very capable Republican women that they could have chosen for him. I'm pretty sure they were like, we're just going to have to wash this election because he's coming in like a bull. I don't think we're going to win this. And then, that's really my it's the same reason when they ran against Clinton in the second, Bob Dole. Bob Dole against Clinton was taking a knee on that election.
In the second Clinton election, was Ross Perot still there?
No, Ross Perot was...
he was there when Bush ran.
He was in Bush's original election. He didn't play as big a role in any further elections.
Wait, because he ran twice. He got 20% of the vote.
The second time, I don't think he played as big a role as the first time.
But he was there for both Bush senior runs?
Probably. I know he was there for the first one for sure. He was very vocal in the first one.
Where he won, where Bush won.
Mm-hmm.
You sure?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
I know for a fact he was there in the first one. He wasn't he didn't have the presence against Clinton because Clinton's popularity just washed him away. But when Clinton ran against Dole, that was the Republican Party taking a knee. That guy had the personality of cardboard. I think they don't run their best candidate because you only get one kick at presidency. If you lose an election, you don't have a second chance of being at becoming the nominee. Like Kerry
didn't they do that with Nixon though? Didn't Nixon run and lose and then he won?
Did he? I don't know.
He lost against
Kennedy. And then he ran.
Okay, then that was a rare case.
I think that's probably the exception.
Since then,
yes.
Since then, he is not. You've got one kick at becoming president, and if you lose, You can't. They can't run the same horse twice.
I was very surprised that John Kerry didn't try it again. Because he didn't lose by much.
Once you lose once, it kills your PR.
You're branded, you're tarnished.
You're tarnished as a loser, yeah.
Because
you come in second.
But they still keep on going. They still have careers. They're still senators. They still senators for after
I didn't say they have to
gone.
retire. It's just you can't You can't take a second kick at president.
You just can't be president.
You've lost the election once, and that becomes one more thing that they can attack you on. Losing the election is a liability if you try to run again.
So you still think Trump has a legitimate shot to win this election?
I could be overemphasizing his supporters. Maybe what you see is all he's got, and there isn't like maybe everyone who shows up to the rally is the only one that's voting for him. I could be misproportionating it, but I'm not underestimating the stupidity of America. We all thought Brexit wasn't going to win, and that won in a landslide on a vote of hate. He's coming out with the exact same rhetoric that Brexit used to win. Because Brexit was losing. Brexit was trending negatively until this until the hate started. This big huge lie that they were going to save millions of dollars and was going to go into the National Health Care Service. That's what swung the vote. And the next day, we shouldn't have said that. That was a lie. They won a whole election on hate and lie. That's what he's shoveling. And if you think the Americans are any better than the Britons, I don't think you're paying attention.
Brexit, I think, is a different situation because when it came to Brexit, there were people who did not vote. They knew all the issues, but they didn't vote because they thought it has no chance to win. So then they stopped voting.
I think, actually, for that, I think a lot of people voted for Brexit because they thought it wasn't going to win. And then it turns out it actually did win. It wasn't the abstaining, it was the joke vote or people not paying attention to what it actually meant.
Okay, that's a different level of stupidity.
Yes.
Okay, I don't want to get into that.
And I'm pretty sure it's the same. I think a lot of people are going to think really funny to vote for the orange-haired bastard.
But it comes back to my central tenet, which is vote responsibly. And if you vote responsibly, you will get the government that you deserve.
Open your eyes. You got to open your eyes to see who you are voting for.
But do you think Trump really wants it? Do you really think he needs to be president?
The president
he doesn't need it.
The president doesn't carry as much lawmaking power. You know, he does depending on.
He's the executive.
Depending on the proportion of the vote, he's got veto power. The president has veto power. But if the vote exceeds a certain amount, even the president can't veto it. As just happened recently, Obama just got a vote pushed through his veto because of the vote excess.
Was that the one to sue Saudi Arabia?
It's something about allowing them to
families
sue.
Yeah.
That one kind of backfired, and it
He
turns out
voted no, right? Obama said no, you can't sue.
That's right.
Yeah, he voted no on the law, and then it got pushed back through him because they just had so much of a majority vote. And then it turns out the law was.
So it's going through, or they just ignored his veto?
They secondly voted to override his veto. There were two.
So they voted. So it's law.
They voted.
Now, so they can.
They voted. He vetoed. They had a second vote to override it, and it pushed through. So it's going to law.
And it's pushed through. So it's done. Okay. So those people can now sue Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but apparently there's problems with the law, and that is not very specific.
Benny, that's your warning. Back on topic. Trump.
But that's in terms of making laws. That's the extent of the president's power. Now he's got other executive powers. He votes for nuclear strikes. He makes military decisions.
He's got the codes, Ben. He's got the codes.
He's got the code. That's dangerous because he has little regard to anyone who's not American.
Sarah Palin was a blocked artery away from having the codes.
Yeah.
That's power. That's power.
It's a lot of power.
And that's why they lost, because people were like, we're not going to give her the codes.
Like Mike Pence, I haven't seen him do anything. his visibility versus Palin's visibility is night and day. Palin was like making a fool of herself in front of TV every single day.
She was the sizzle on the steak.
Wow.
She was. She was.
She was supposed to be.
She
They
was.
could have picked a
She
better
was the
running mate.
sizzle, right? Right. She was the face of the young, different Republican female party, reaching out across borders, trying to aggregate interests. Right. She was the one who was being parodied on Saturday Night Live and all this kind of stuff. Right. The VPs are of no consequence in this election whatsoever. None whatsoever.
It becomes exactly what you said before. It has to be part of it because a lot of that stuff can happen to a president. They could be disabled. Trump is rumored apparently doesn't want actually to have anything to do with being the president, and it's been suggested that he's going to hand everything over to Mike Pence.
But according to Trump's doctor, he is one of the healthiest people that has ever run for the presidency. So we have no need to worry about the vice president ever getting access to the codes.
No,
None.
but the vice
and that's
president
according to Trump's
the vice
doctor.
president can still make all the decisions like with George W. Bush. You know, if
Well,
Pence
there
makes the
was
decisions and all Trump is going to do is sign off on everything, it's still just as dangerous because because Pence is a very strong right wing individual.
Well, that's why he was chosen, right?
How translatable you think these polls are into, actual?
What do you mean translatable?
Their whole electoral system. I don't even understand the electoral college and all this stuff. Like we're talking about popular vote.
What do you mean you don't understand it? What's so hard to understand?
I don't understand. Explain it to me.
Every state
Yeah.
has a number of electoral college votes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So people think they vote directly for the president
Right.
in the United States, but they don't.
So they're voting.
They vote for electors of the electoral college who will then vote for the president.
So every state has a set number of electors.
Every state has a set number of electors, and not only that, every state also has rules saying for this particular state, all of the votes are going to one guy, a percentage goes to one person, depending on how many votes are cast. So you're not voting directly for the president. So if you look at the popular vote, like what happened when Bush and, what's his face, Hollywood star, Oscar man,
Al Gore.
Al Gore. When you look at Gore, right, he won the popular vote,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So the percentage of people who voted for Gore was higher.
Higher.
But when it came to the electoral college, Bush Jr. won, what is he, 43? He's 43, right? His father's 41 in terms of the presidency.
Oh, I don't know.
They used to have hats, I think. I think they were 43, 41. But anyways, the people in the electoral college, he won more of the state's electoral college votes. So that's why he became president,
Right.
right? Just like in our system in Canada, you don't vote directly for the prime minister.
Yeah.
You vote for your local representative and their party. Whoever gets the most seats, the leader of the party with the most seats is anointed as the grand poobah,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would rely on polls to necessarily be the absolute indicator of who's going to win.
But their system is bifurcated, right? You've
Right.
only really got two main choices that
Yeah.
go through.
Yeah.
Our system, you've got almost four sometimes
even worse.
legitimate parties. So the popular vote
Is less meaningful. Right?
is less meaningful because you can have in Canada routinely you have prime ministers who get majority mandates with 33%, 35% of the popular vote.
Yeah.
It's like 2 out of 3 people don't like you, but you're the chief,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You become the face that runs the place. How? Because that's the way our party works, first past the post. But for them, right, that's how their system works. And then they've got all the checks and balances, like JR was saying, where you go through and you can have the executive branch, the legislative branch, and all these, and the judicial branch, and they're all kind of interconnected. They all look after each other. We don't have that here. Basically, the prime minister's office runs our whole runs our whole country, unopposed, right? So the popular vote, it's a good indicator. It shows Clinton trending up.
But it didn't turn out in that particular election, right?
Which one? The Gore?
The Gore Bush one, right?
Bush won, yes. That's why they were counting votes in Florida for
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
Months. because it all came down to electoral college votes. No one cared who Bubba voted for in Alabama, right? It's who voted for who
In that one state.
in that one state. That's what it boiled down to.
Yeah.
And we won't have that issue now.
No.
It's not going to be close. It's not going to be close. These numbers are going to keep on. These numbers are going to keep on trending. They're going to keep on widening,
I think
like
there's
a gulf.
I think there's a lot of displeasure with the Democrats right now in the States.
I think there's displeasure with everybody.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
a misplaced displeasure though, because
Oh, no,
the
absolutely.
Republicans have just buckled down and allowed the country to go to hell for 8 years just to make Obama look bad, which is the worst way to run a country. Yeah, they know he's going to take all the heat because he's the president, but they have anything he's back. They just by default oppose.
Well, they should. They're the opposition.
He could back a ban on abortion, and I bet you they would automatically just reject it, just because it was his idea. The bipartisanship in that's been running that country for 8 years is unbelievable.
I think you might be reading a bit too much into that.
That's
don't
that's an exaggeration.
Yes.
That is totally exaggeration.
I see your point, though.
But
I see
their
your point.
default policy, I think, is if he proposes it, we will shut it down. They don't care what the idea is.
Hey, if they control the other two houses, right? If they control the two houses, then that means that people are agreeing with them.
The country still has to run. You can't shut down the country
Yes.
just because you want to overthrow the government.
But if they've been doing that and winning, you can't fault them for that.
I can
If
fault
that's
them because
their
that is
strategy-
unethical. That is unethical to take down the whole country just to play to your own. It's a winning strategy. You're right. It does. There's lots of winning strategies that are wrong.
Well, they're not doing anything outside of the
Cheating
outside of the
works.
system.
It's still illegal.
But they're not doing anything outside of the system. They're using all the levers that are available to them as part of the government. Right? You can't fault them for that, because at the end of the day, they're politicians. Their number one job is to get elected. Just like people that we see here, local councillors come out of the woodwork here every 3 years. I never see them. I never hear from them. Suddenly their signs go up on lawns across the subdivision, and I'm supposed to know the difference in policy between Joe A and Joe B. I don't know.
At that granular level, I mean, it's easier to get that information because they are a little more accessible. But you can't have an elected official that spends 90% of their time in campaigning, starting from the day of their the day of their election. They've got to get their work done. They have to, whatever their job is. I expect them to do it. They can't campaign all the freaking time. It can't always be photo ops. It's got to be get your job done.
When you've got fixed election dates, the next election starts as soon as this election's over, because you know when it's going to take place.
True, but they work on recent memory. You're not going to do something. You're not going to start campaigning 4 years in advance because anything can happen.
I don't know. I think it's
Or it could just show up like, man, this guy's always been campaigning. Was he doing any work? It can bite you in the ass.
the conservatives were criticized for that. Federal conservatives were criticized for that in this
Because
in this
they were
country.
using federal funds to do it.
They were using federal funds to do it, and they never stopped.
Like Harper was routinely criticized as using his prime minister jet for promotion for party promotion purposes and not actual federal government business.
I think I agree with you from the last show. Like you said, when people are in power for too long, eventually they all just get sucked into the morass
Yes.
of being in power, and it's just boondoggle after corruption, where it's just people get entrenched and they're just pigs at the trough. For me personally, I've never voted for the party that's in power. I've never voted for the party that's in power. I'm always looking for someone to come in and kick their asses out and start going again, because that way it keeps everybody honest.
Politicians are like dirty diapers. They need to be changed. Remember that,
that's-
folks.
Oh, that's
Frequently
beautiful.
and for the same reason.
And vote responsibly.
Do your homework and be honest.
Yes.
Don't vote for the most popular, funny person. Realize that this person is going to lead the country. You know.
Well, we're
for as much-
Canadians. We're not going to vote anyway in this. We're not going to vote in this election anyway. And people might be saying, "Well, why do you care so much?" Well, we're the neighbor, and we're going to have to put up with it.
Yeah.
right? We're gonna have to put up with it.
And just because we're not living in the country, doesn't make just because I don't live in the States doesn't mean I'm less sympathetic to the social justice issues.
Correct.
You know, the Republicans in the last 8 years have become beyond evil. I mean, I never agreed with their policies and their topics. Fine, but who ran again with Sarah Palin?
With what pair? Oh, McCain.
McCain was not evil, and I will never say he was an evil guy.
He was a war hero. He was tortured.
Yeah,
in
but
Vietnam.
his opinions were not radically extreme. You know,
No,
when he
that's
was
true.
he was shown on video when some woman was saying, Obama's a Muslim and I don't trust him." He actually came out and said, "No, he's not. He's a good person. He's a good God-fearing Christian." He actually stood up for Obama. He just said, "We simply disagree." You're never going to get that from anybody since Obama was elected.
He was a completely reasonable individual.
I totally
And
agree.
as soon as
Romney
he-
wasn't so bad either, to be honest with you. He might have been a little more to the right wing, but I didn't get a lot of hate from Romney. But the party itself has allowed the Tea Party to dictate so much.
They're the ones that
They've
show up.
poisoned that whole party.
They're the ones that show up at primaries. They're the ones that vote as a bloc. They're the largest, or sorry, they're the loudest voice in the room, and that's why we got Trump.
That party is super evil now.
They're messed up. They're
Yeah.
messed up, and they have basically thrown this election away by having someone like Donald Trump in there who has no chance to win. And there are high-ranking people within that party that pulled their support away from him because they realize he has no chance to win. As soon as people think, and as the champ mentioned, you gotta change these politicians like diapers. And if you sit and vote responsibly and actually listen to people and do the smallest bit of homework to educate yourself as a voter, there's no way that you can in good conscience vote for this man. There's no way.
Do you think they're pulling support because he can't win or because he shouldn't win? And those are two different questions.
What do you mean?
He can't win just means that he's losing and therefore he's a lame duck. Shouldn't win means he's fucking crazy. Sorry. Means this is an insane person that should not have that kind of power. In the same way as you don't give a 5-year-old a gun.
I don't think he's insane. According to his doctor, he is the most healthiest person who's ever run for political office in the United States.
He's still
And
a sociopath.
that's coming from a medical doctor. His license is on the line, so I think that he would know what he's talking about. So he's not insane. He may have personality quirks like anyone else, but I don't think he's insane. But his ideas, his lack of policies, his lack of general knowledge about how government works, which comes out whenever he's giving a speech anywhere. As much as I dislike Clinton because she's been there forever and I think is entrenched in the bureaucracy and
She's
should
worked
not
her
be
way
allowed.
up.
It worked her way up.
Most
Old ideas.
Almost every presidential candidate has been a politician their whole career for many years. You only see them now because they became president. They get a massive exposure. All of them have worked their way up from low-level government to federal government. They didn't just become a flash in the pan. Trump thinks he's going to just jump to the end and he's going to get all the keys without actually learned how the government works.
But he could. He should.
Because
you don't need to be a politician to learn how government works, right? We're talking about basic things. Even if you just look at the level of corruption with Clinton herself, okay? There's probably 1 billion better candidates that you could think of to go and be the Democratic nominee, okay? And they probably had a good one with Bernie Sanders, but he didn't end up making the grade for whatever reason, right?
Because he kept looking like he rolled out of bed that morning in the suit he was wearing.
But he had good ideas.
He did have good ideas.
Right? He had good ideas. But she is part of the political machine, okay? She knows where all the bodies are buried. She's been there forever, right? So for voting for her is going to be a lot of more of the same. If you like Obama, then you vote for her. You know pretty much what you're going to get. right? She's also got the whole thing of she'll be the first woman president, right?
Which is a significant accomplishment.
That's a significant
A
accomplishment.
woman has to work significantly harder in politics to get elected than a man does, especially if she's running against a man. That's if you think sexism isn't alive, I would correct you.
So she's got all that going for her, right? If the Republicans fielded a halfway decent nominee, this election would be over. This election would be over. There would be no way Clinton would have a chance. But they didn't. We got Trump. We got a reality TV star. We got a businessman that routinely goes bankrupt. We got someone who doesn't understand how his own government works. We have a man who is sitting up there lying to us.
And who publicly admitted that he doesn't pay taxes during a national debate.
Which, you know what, is okay. Because he's pointing out the hypocrisies in the system, right? Those laws are there. He's not breaking any laws that we know of. He may be under audit. He may not be. Who knows, right? He won't even release a letter saying that he is under audit, which has no information in it. He doesn't have to release his audited tax forms. But the point is, if he pays no taxes, and if he's able to structure his financial dealings so that he doesn't pay taxes, if he's not breaking any laws, good for him for saying it. Because that's coming out and saying, these are the laws of the country, I understand them, and I'm coming in to change them because I don't think they're just. That's fine. But he's not saying that. He's coming out and he's posting pictures of himself eating Mexican food, saying his hotels make the best Mexican food available. Right? Like
Yeah,
that's the level of stupidity we're dealing with. You can't get there's no idea of how much this Mexico wall is going to cost. There's no idea of, oh yeah, we're just going to walk in and we're going to renegotiate all of these trade deals because he's playing the character that he's on TV where he's this master negotiator.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
His comments
it's a character.
about expecting Clinton to have demanded more out of Iran from their trade sanctions. You have no idea that he thinks that the U.S. Yes, they are a superpower, but not people. They're not going to steamroll over any country.
It's not the 80s. There are other countries out there with juice and with stroke, right?
Exactly.
And there's countries that the United States relies upon. So he's just coming out there. He's thinking. You get the impression from him that he's just going to act unilaterally on every issue, and he's going to use his voodoo negotiation tactics to just make people bend over and take it, whatever he's feeding them.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
No.
It's not going to happen.
But he sells it like.
But he sells it. But he
and
sells
a lot
it.
of people eat it up.
He sells it, but I think as people choose to vote responsibly, there's no way he can win.
Well, if he loses, I will come on air and say you were right. I will publicly admit my being wrong, and I will gladly admit being wrong if he loses.
Finally, that's all I wanted to hear. That's all I wanted to hear.
Aren't you amazed that he's doing this well in the polls?
Initially, but there are still 2 more debates to go. And we've seen the trend is going down. I think the support is just going to strip away from him.
I think it's only a matter of time before he gets so worked up that he drops a racial slur in the debate. Because he's so easy. He's easy to get worked up. Mm-hmm. I can't wait for him to drop a racial slur and just tank the whole election.
You think so?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Like I wouldn't discount.
Because I would imagine. Okay, let's say there are still some African Americans that think that Trump is okay. If he drops an N-bomb on air, that is an unforgivable sin for any white guy. He will not be able to reclaim the African American vote if for some reason he drops the N-word on national television. Or if he starts using.
Well, I wish.
Like right now
I wish that Big V was here to speak to this because I think he could say a little bit more on this topic.
Give us some examples.
I think he could give some more examples.
I mean,
but
he gets it's so he guys their team his team is probably doing so much work keeping him on point, keeping him away from certain phrases. But I'm sure if you get him really pissed, he becomes a creature of instinct, and he's going to say the first thing that comes to his mind. You just have to get him really worked up, and I bet you the poorer his polls go, the more agitated he's going to get, and the closer he's going to get to just really saying something he's not supposed to.
I think they.
Something completely unforgivable.
I think they changed the structure of the debates because, as I remember it, there used to be 3 debates or whatever, and it would be foreign policy, domestic policy, and then there would be one on economics or something like that. Like, am I remembering that correctly? Where the debates would have some sort of structure to them as to here's what we're talking about. That first debate that they had, there seemed to be no structure to
It
it.
was all over the place.
It was just whatever the moderator decided to ask them.
Yeah.
They just talked about it. He didn't mention the wall once, like a central tenet of his platform that he campaigned on through all the primaries, and it wasn't even mentioned once in the debate.
Because it's so wrong.
Yeah, his handlers have sorted that out. Right?
Don't you think there would be a question on that?
That's an oversight of the media.
Right?
Remember, it was
shouldn't
also
there be a theme to the debate?
It was also moderated by Fox, and that's probably why they steered away
No, I
from it.
think
wasn't it
NBC. NBC, the guy was.
It wasn't CNN?
No, well, it was on.
No, it was a Republican
sorry.
moderator. So definitely biased towards
Sorry,
Trump.
it was shown on every channel. Right,
You think
every
he was
channel
biased toward- he was biased
showed it.
towards.
But I think
He
the
got a
guy
lot more
who
talking
I think
than
the guy
she
who
did. He got to
moderated the
interrupt her a
debate
lot
Yes.
more
was
without
from like
restraint.
NBC or something.
He was interrupting Trump. He
Because
stepped on
I've seen
Clinton
him
a lot,
before. I
and the
can't
I've seen
remember
it
moderator
before.
which
Okay,
network.
let's check out Google here.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was a Fox moderator. The moderator was from Fox.
I don't
News.
think he was from Fox.
Well, I'm checking here.
I think he's gonna gain a lot because he's
Entertain the people here. I'm just going to check.
he's the anti-Obama, and I think there's enough Americans who are displeased with what Obama's done.
What did they do? He gave them national. He's moving them towards national
Well,
health.
listen, I'm not arguing for
I-
him, but what I'm saying, just the general sense that I get from Americans is that they're unhappy with whatever they call their healthcare system.
So the
Yeah.
sorry to interject here, Tito, but the moderator of the first debate was Lester Holt.
Right.
He's from NBC Nightly News.
Okay.
Okay.
So he may have been the moderator, but as I said, it was shown on every channel. So it's not like the
I thought it was CNN thing.
Well,
Yeah.
how does NBC lean?
I have no idea.
Not unbiased. Okay, I
have no idea.
Stand up. I stand corrected.
I have no idea. The moderator himself, it says here that according to this article, Washington Post, Holt is a registered Republican.
Ah, okay. All right. I saw a really good comic this week where it was a bunch of sheep in a field with a billboard of the wolf in a suit saying, "I will eat you," and then one of the sheep's like, "Well, he's pretty direct." I like that.
I like that.
I like that he's direct. I think that sums up his whole campaign like right there.
Pretty much, which is why I think that's going to be his undoing. I can't see any way that he wins this election. Much as Iron Man said in the first Avengers, there's no version of this where he comes out on top. None.
I seriously hope you're right.
None.
Breeze.
I think he's got a good chance. I think he's got a really good chance.
We're going to see as time goes on.
I think the economic climate, he panders to the mentality that's easiest for most people to.
The economic climate is good.
But they may.
It's not. It's not like.
It's not bad, but it's as Newt Gingrich says. It's not what is. It's what people believe. If the Republicans keep telling,
the economic climate in the United States is good
if
compared to where
if-
it was. Go back to 2008 when the crash
No,
happened.
but people aren't comparing that.
It is
right?
good.
If,
People are
pe-
not
if
comparing
people
that,
if people
right?
were
What are they
intelligent enough
comparing
to
it
do
to?
that research,
The average middle-aged dude is comparing his life to his daddy's life.
Oh, that's a sucker's bet
Oh,
Yeah.
well, okay.
because Daddy had the life.
But this
We're
is,
never gonna have the life of Daddy.
Okay, but this is exactly what Trump is saying. He's saying, vote for me and we'll make America great again like it was when your daddy was your age, right? And whether he can actually do that and whether he actually has policies that make sense and can convince people is irrelevant, right? Because most people are not educated enough to understand economic policy.
What's to understand? They are doing much better than they were.
If you're
There's a lot to
unemployed,
understand,
it's easy to sell that the economy is doing bad, and a lot of people just they want it to be bad because they want to support their decision. It becomes self-fulfilling. If the Republicans tell them like the economy is bad, well, I really want a reason to believe the Republicans, and therefore the economy must be bad.
Like
The Republicans misstate the state of the country repeatedly. I think he was even on Fox News where Gingrich was stating that crime is up all over the place, and the reporter, who was a Fox reporter, actually stood and was like, stats say with the exception of certain hotspots, crime overall has dropped.
Is down.
Is
Correct.
down. She was defending Obama in that case.
Yes.
And he's like, and Gingrich just commented that. He's like, well, you can stay with facts, and I'll stick with beliefs, and we'll see who gets further. And as long as you
I
can
think I
make
saw
people,
this.
yeah, as long
think
as
I
you
saw
make people believe that they're worse off, they won't realize that they're actually not. And especially if you have a group of people that want to hate the current president, they'll eat up everything. They'll eat it all up. Because as Tito was saying, if you're smart enough to do research on what the economy is like, then you're smart enough to see through Trump's crap, and it becomes a non-issue. If you're not going to do the work,
It comes back to what I was saying.
you're easily led.
Vote responsibly.
Yeah,
people,
but people are not
vote
gonna do
responsibly.
That. People are
Try.
not gonna do that, my friend. They're
Do
not gonna
research.
do it.
The
They're not
power
gonna do
is at-
it.
If you don't expect them to do it, if no one comes here like me, the paragon of virtue, who tells them vote responsibly, okay? If no one holds you to that standard, much like little children, they will act the way that you want them to act. When I yell at my 3.5-year-old son, he listens to what I'm saying because he knows that I expect a certain level from him. If I don't say anything, he'll sit on the couch and he'll eat cookies and watch TV all day, right? But we are here to tell people. We are that clarion bell that's ringing, okay? We're there to let them know, vote responsibly.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I don't think they're gonna do it.
Why are you talking out of both sides of your mouth?
That's not both sides of my mouth.
You're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
I
You're
agree
saying,
with
you're
you.
saying,
He's
I agree
reasonable.
with you. You're
Well,
right.
If I was
But
an
I think
American
that-
citizen,
but
I
also
would
think-
vote for Clinton.
But it doesn't matter who we want to vote for.
I would.
We can't vote.
I would tell everyone who would listen, vote for Clinton, please.
But
But people
what
are
point
not-
what point are you
people-
trying to make?
pe-
Are you
what-
saying that you standing on the street corner as the lone voice in the wilderness saying vote for Clinton, you're saying you can't sway enough people?
No, absolutely not.
You have a jaded view of the world. You have a jaded view of the world.
I have an
Jaded.
accurate view of the
You are
world.
jaded. You are jaded.
Accurate view.
You think that perception is reality.
I don't know what that means.
That's what I just said.
I don't understand.
You think that because people, you perceive them to be dumb, you think there's nothing you can do to change them.
Correct.
You're elitist?
No,
Yeah, yes, you are.
I
Because
think I'm
you
one of the
that-
dummies.
But then why would you be standing up there trying to get people to change their vote?
I'm not
Why would
standing-
you classify yourself as one of the dummies?
Because I don't understand economic theory. I don't know anything about foreign relations. I have no idea how any of this stuff works. So it's a joke that I have the right to vote.
Do you think you should be allowed to vote?
No.
So if there was a political candidate that stood up there and said, "You should not vote, vote for me,
Yeah.
and I'll take away your right to vote," you'd support them?
I voted once in my life.
If answer the question, if there was a candidate that said, "Vote for me,"
Yeah.
and I'll take away your right to vote because voting is too important to be left to you,
Yes.
you'd vote for them.
Not just based on that one issue. No. They'd have to offer me something as well.
So you would have to do some research and now, okay, wait for it. Vote responsibly
No.
to make your mind up. Right? So you'd be engaged in the political process. You don't have to be an expert
But I wouldn't do
on
the
foreign
research.
relations. You don't have to be an expert on economic theory.
I wouldn't
You
do
don't
the
have to be an
research.
expert on political theory. You just have to know enough to make an informed decision. And then you vote your conscience. That's all you have to do. If people voted with up to their ability, right? Because you don't get the vote because you've passed a certain test. You get the vote because you're a human being
Yeah.
and we're all equal. So everyone gets a chance to vote. Every rational person gets a chance to vote. The people who are so deep into it that they support their party through thick and thin, they are balanced out by the people who come over and say, I'm going to vote for whoever gives me the best number, right? Whoever gives me the song that I want to hear. Whoever, I put that quarter in the machine, whoever plays my tune, they're getting my vote. But the vast majority of people, life gets in the way, right? Stuff happens. You go to work, you come home, you got kids, you got this, you got that, you got a cat, you got a fish. All these things happen. You got a spider pet in your car. Things happen. Okay? You can check out my Twitter for that. But the point is, you do the best that you can to get as educated as you can. You vote responsibly, and then you get the government that you should have. When people just throw their vote away by not voting, right? Unless they're abstaining for a particular reason, because I've always heard that before. If you don't vote, you can't complain. Well, that's bullshit. I think that's bullshit because someone could choose not to vote as an indictment of the entire system, and they could have real good reasons for not voting. So that to me is just a populist cop-out. But when you sit there and say, it's a joke that I get a chance to vote, I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that at all. And I don't think you agree with it either.
I do.
We might be getting a little off topic because, to be fair, Tino, you don't vote on every single piece of legislation, and in that case, you would be right. We can't referendum every law that's being enacted.
That's no way for a government to function.
And in that case, to that granular degree, you're right. I'm not a foreign policy expert, so you can't referendum foreign policy, but you should be able to understand some of what each candidate offers. There's something about each candidate. You can't judge them on every criteria. You have to judge them on what you feel is most important.
And on that note, we're going to be closing this discussion off. This is probably the first of many we're going to have on this U.S. election. Trump, Clinton, the round table. Any closing words, JR, before we close it up?
I strongly advise all of our American listeners to vote Clinton. Whatever you may feel about her and what people have been saying about her, she is a strong candidate. She's done a lot of work. She's earned her position as Secretary of State. She's worked her way up. And that's the kind of person you need to lead the country. Nobody gave that to her. She earned it all. And as a woman, she worked twice as hard for it.
It's politics. Earning it has nothing to do with it. Obama earned nothing when he was elected president.
You have to win and get yourself up. They didn't just pick Obama off the street to be.
He was the junior senator from his state. There was a litany of people in front of him. He gave one good speech, and the snowball started at a presidential convention or at a delegates convention.
It's still a lot of hard work to be elected president.
It's a lot of hard work.
It's not handed to you, and Clinton's career was not handed to her either. There's a lot of work and a lot of work she's done to pass a lot of her foreign policies, but that's a discussion for another time.
That's right.
Clinton is who should be the next
JR, that's your warning. Off topic. Tito?
That's two warnings. For
Tito, what do you have to close off with?
Yeah, vote Clinton. She said trickle-down economics doesn't work. She's right.
I agree with you. Not on the vote Clinton thing, but on the trickle-down economics, I don't subscribe to that theory either. I'm not going to tell people how to vote. I will never tell people how to vote. I tell people how I'm going to vote, but I have no horse in that race. So all I say is voting is a privilege, not a right. Vote responsibly. Make yourself educated, be part of the system, and make your vote count.
And we'll take that as your closing words. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the round table. Until next time, we're signing off. Subscribe, explore, and enjoy. Ciao for now.
You've been listening to the Crew Roundtable podcast. Thank you for listening. For more information on our show, please visit us at www.crewroundtable.com. You can also reach us over Twitter at Crew Roundtable. Hashtag #AskTheCrew for show ideas, topics, or questions.